evening and welcome to the Ombudsman program. My name is Diane Welborn. I'm the Ombudsman and I will be your host for this evening's program. I have with me this evening the program director for our long-term care Ombudsman program at the Ombudsman office. His name is Lawrence Wilkins and he goes by Chip. So Chip, please say hello to our viewers this evening.
Hi, viewers. I am Chip Wilkins. Everybody that knows me goes by Chip. I'm one of those double chip off the old blocks after my two grandfathers. But it's such a pleasure to be here, and I've been looking forward to this all day.
Yes, me too. So let's just go ahead and get started because we really have a lot to talk about. But just to introduce you 1 minute more, how long have you been with the Ombudsman program?
Well, I am in my ninth year now. I've been here 8. I can't believe it's that long. It has flown by. Prior to working at the Ombudsman's office, I practiced law for 20 plus years and then had a family member go through some real trials and tribulations in long-term care. Met an ombudsman and loved what they do. Then ended up connecting with a comrade in Kettering who gave me directions to contact the ombudsman's office, and one thing led to another, and here I am and couldn't be happier.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you so much for that. We're glad that you're with our program and contributing to that mission. I want to take a minute and just explain to the viewers just a small, quick history about the Ombudsman Office. We were established in 1971 by an act of the City of Dayton, Montgomery County Commissioners, and the Dayton Public School Board. And so we have been in operation now over 50 years, resolving complaints for people in Montgomery County, government complaints in that part of our office. Then later in time, the Ombudsman long-term care ombudsman program was established and established initially. I'll let Chip talk about its background, but it came to the Ombudsman office in 1978. So it has been a part of our mission to advocate for the residents of long-term care facilities ever since that time. So, Chip, I'll let you provide our viewers with a little bit more history about the development and initial mandate of the long-term care ombudsman program. Take it away.
Thank you. Absolutely. We are advocates for initially residents in nursing homes and assisted living facilities that has now grown into including individuals who receive long-term care in the community. So if you're at home and you have the need for aides or nurses that come into your home, if there's an issue, we can be your advocate. Additionally, we now have the addition of group homes, which are adult group homes, but that is our primary focus in nursing homes, assisted living facilities, group homes, and in the community if you receive long-term care. All of this goes back to a mandate from Congress back in 1965 when Congress passed the Older Americans Act. It was that act that established that states, every state had to have a long-term care ombudsman program. They did that because there were so many individuals who were in nursing homes that were dying needlessly, that were neglected. There were just a lot of issues, and there was really no oversight to speak of and what was there clearly wasn't working, and the residents weren't protected. Out of that came the Ombudsman program nationally, and every state is now required to have a long-term care ombudsman program. And as kind of the stick rather than the carrot, Congress has said if states don't do that, they can lose Medicare and Medicaid funding, and that's a whole mess to really unravel. We need 2 or 3 programs to talk about that. But from the Older Americans Act, the Ombudsman office in Ohio was started. And the way we operate in Ohio, there is one appointed state long term care ombudsman. Underneath that ombudsman are all of the other long term care ombudsmen, but we are really working as a team for the Department of Aging and the long term care ombudsman. The ombudsman office in Ohio is in 12 different regions. So they've taken Ohio, sliced it up into 12 pieces, and we are in region 2, which includes a 9-county region with Montgomery County kind of in the center there. But Montgomery, Greene, and Clark County are our biggest counties. And we go to the nursing homes and assisted living facilities in those in our counties. Right now, we have close to 19,000 beds in our region. With all of our facilities, it's now, including with group homes, we're actually down to about 233 facilities where those beds are incorporated. And we have primary jurisdiction in those areas. So we cover in region 2, the 9 counties that really, including Montgomery, but the surrounding 9 counties. And through the Older Americans Act, this was born back in 1965, and now we are functioning. And Ohio is really one of the more strongly supported programs by the state. I'll give you an example, like in Florida, where you would think they would have a very strong funded ombudsman program. They actually have 7 paid staff and to cover the whole state, and then the rest of the ombudsman team is made up of volunteers. Whereas here in Ohio, we have almost 200 paid ombudsmen that are throughout the state, making sure that residents have a voice if there is a problem with the care that they're receiving.
Well, good. Thank you for that bit of history. That's very helpful, Chip. And I think the point to make to our viewers there is that the Ombudsman Office is there here for our particular region, including Montgomery County, but also no matter where a relative of one of our viewers might live in that state, there is an ombudsman for long-term care that could help them in that area. So if people are communicating with relatives or friends, and we're about to have holidays come up, so there's some more of that going on, that if there's a problem that one of our viewers thinks is happening in another state with somebody in a long-term care facility, there is a resource to help. And that's one of the things that we do, and we'll come back to that about helping people get to those programs when we can do that. So there is help in all 50 states for long-term care residents, and that's a wonderful thing because our population is aging, And while people don't usually plan to go to nursing homes, it's something that's greatly needed when a person's health has declined. So
Right.
you mentioned, touched on group homes a little bit. What is our role, or the role that you play, Chip, and our staff with respect to the group homes, please?
Sure. Let me first explain what we mean by group homes, because we hear group home and you don't really know what that entails. In our world of long-term care, uh, group homes are considered to be individuals that are able to live independently, but they typically either have a late developmental disability diagnosis, usually after the age of 22, and that is unusual, but it happens more than you know, more than I knew before I started. Uh, Additionally, if someone or an individual has two or more uh, mental health diagnosis, they then can qualify for group home settings. And in our group homes, they can really be as few as three individuals living in a home, and it can go up to as many as 16. Any more than 16, the state considers that to be assisted living, which is residential care facilities. That's what the term that we use, but it's synonymous with assisted living. And in the group home setting, if a resident has concerns about the care that they're receiving, or they have an issue with getting out to appointments, if they need more activities or help transitioning to independent living. A lot of those types of complaints are what we are the first go to line of defense for those residents. And our contact information legally is to be posted in every group home. We make quarterly visits to the group homes to ensure that that signage of the Ombudsman office is up, because we want those residents to be able to have a voice. I was at a group home today because a resident had called last week, primarily with a concern about of all things, the food supply in the home. They did not have snacks available in the evening, and they had gone 2 mornings without breakfast food. So we were able to go there, and I sat and waited until the owner brought food, because the residents were tired of not having sufficient nutrition in the morning, as well as snacks in the evening. So we were able to help with that. But we really, Diane, cover everything from food complaints to medication issues, all the way we've had financial exploitation of individuals in group homes where someone was taking their funds without their consent. So it can be a large problem, or what seems small, but as you know, there are no small problems, because it is happening to someone and they're concerned. And we take each complaint that comes in, or each concern, as if it were the most important, because it really is to that individual, incredibly important.
Yes, thank you very much for that clarification. And about how many group homes do we have in Montgomery County that we are advocating for residents in?
Right now, we have 41. We actually lost another group home last week that closed. And when I first started, we were around 50. It was 49 or 50. Unfortunately, there are too few adult group homes. And we are really always trying to advocate and market the need for additional adult group homes, because for many individuals there that is a gap between for them between homelessness or being in a institutional setting that would not be appropriate for most of our group home residents.
Thank you. Appreciate that. This is a call-in show, and we do have a caller that has posed a question for us. And the questions, because we're on Zoom, are coming into the chat section of Zoom. So this evening, one caller wants to, first of all, thank us for what the office does. So we appreciate that very, very much. And then also, the caller suspects that a relative is being exploited, who's taking an entity is taking money from her for healing services. And the caller wants to know, is there something that our office would be able to do to assist in this situation? So, Chip, I'll let you take a stab at answering that for us. Thank you.
Okay, I'll take my best shot. Absolutely, there is a role for our office to investigate. We could look into the $10,000 payment for healing services, and what we would do is first and foremost look at each individual resident and make sure that they are able to make sound decisions for themselves. And we call that, do they have legal capacity to make decisions for themselves? Are they legally competent? If they are legally competent, then we will work with that individual, make sure that they know exactly what they are doing. It may be that they have wanted to be able to help or assist a group all of their life, and this is their opportunity to do that, and they're fully behind that. Could also be, though, that they had a misunderstanding of what the money was for, and we could dig into that and see if there's any confusion as to what the money is being used for. But more often than not, I will say, when we're looking at financial exploitation, we have someone who is on the verge or has lost capacity to make decisions for themselves, particularly financial decisions. And if we determine that the individual doesn't have capacity to make decisions for themselves, then we would look to see, do they have a legal representative, either a power of attorney or a guardian? And does this individual know that $10,000 has been given to an entity for healing services? And if they aren't aware of it, we would then likely in a case like that try and work to get the funds back. If we couldn't, and there wasn't a signature from a power of attorney or a guardian, we would then in all likelihood bring in a local police department to help with the investigation. Sometimes we have to go and first get bank records and the like. But I have learned the hard way over the years that when we go and have a financial exploitation case, we want to get as much information and documentation as possible to be able to substantiate that there has been an exchange of funds, and then that it was done without the consent or without a approval from someone who has legal capacity to make decisions. And then once we gather all that information and documentation, then we go to the proper authorities to begin a criminal investigation. And our role is to really, we want to make sure our residents are protected, that they really are not being exploited, and we do whatever we can to immediately kind of stop the bleeding and the loss of money going out. And that's what I see as our first primary responsibility, is to close the spigot, so to speak, to make sure no more money leaves the individual's account, and then try and work to get the funds back if possible. And a lot of times, unfortunately, that does involve having to bring in police departments or attorney general's office. But thankfully, I can say that, we have those cases, but they are not as widespread as some other areas of the state, let alone the country. But we have them, and we absolutely can help, and it is something that we take very seriously and will move mountains to try and help a individual who's being exploited.
Well, thank you. And while it is reassuring that we don't have the level of the problem of financial exploitation that some other areas may, it has been on the rise, and it is a concern in our region, like in every region, because many times it is the seniors in the families that will have acquired the most financial resources, and therefore, as they age, at times they become targets, and that's something that is important to us, to protect people in that way.
Absolutely.
Let's talk a little bit about the MyCare program, which is relatively new, and we just don't know how many of our viewers are aware of what that is. But it is also a program with which we can assist individuals that receive MyCare if they're having some particular problem. So why don't you take some time and explain that, Chip?
Absolutely. MyCare Ohio is a I apologize. We had a visitor at our door, as that can happen. But MyCare Ohio is absolutely a growing trend in the state, and it is what individuals have when they are both on Medicare and Medicaid. And if someone has Medicare and Medicaid, they end up with MyCare Ohio as their the group or the grouping, we should say, of the care. And it is for individuals that have both Medicare and Medicaid. And we work to make sure those individuals are receiving the best possible benefits from that. But what is key about MyCare is that it is managed care. It's not like a program that used to be available for Medicare, where someone would have one insurance company that managed all of their issues. In this case, you have a company that is managing both their Medicare and Medicaid, and it's more managed than any other type of care that's out there.
Okay, that's very helpful for those that are not familiar with the MyCare program. For those that receive Medicare and Medicaid, both of those. I think that one area that we increasingly see that we have to help people with on My Care is access to equipment that they may need, durable medical equipment, because much of that can be very expensive, and sometimes we see that people are not having that processed very quickly. I want to add also that there's yet another question in our chat that's coming from a viewer asking if we help with eviction cases and maybe some of the other cases that we deal with. Well, the General Ombudsman program takes complaints about government agencies for residents of Montgomery County. So eviction cases are not government agencies unless the case is such that someone is living in a public housing or supported by public housing in which government is involved in that. So the general rule is that we don't help with eviction cases when somebody is living in private housing and has a lease and has a contract and in that type of housing arrangement. I wanted to also add that that we do investigate complaints about government agencies and government at all levels. It can be, of course, county, it can be municipalities, can be cities, it can even be state and federal agencies. And in fact, some of those agencies have increased in our case handling in recent years. But when we're talking about long-term care facilities, and I'll let Chip fill in a little bit more on this, but a discharge from a nursing home can happen for many different reasons. It could be because the person was there for rehab and now they're ready to leave. It can be that they want to return to the community, so they've been living in a facility and now they want to go to an apartment and live independently. That can happen. But where our office does get involved is when people are discharged from long-term care facilities or evicted if it's a case where they don't want to leave the facility. And so we do receive the notices of discharge, and we will intervene with those individuals. I see you're unmuted, so I'll let you take it from there.
Well, I was just waiting for the excitement to die down here.
Okay.
We do, in fact, have many individuals who receive the 30-day notice of eviction. And I should start by letting viewers know that in nursing homes and assisted living facilities, if someone has lived there for 30 days or longer, they cannot just be thrown out on the street without any notice. The Ohio law states that an individual has to be given a 30-day written notice if they are going to be involuntarily removed from the facility. So when that notice is given to an individual, it states right on the notice that if they want to appeal, they can contact our office to assist with that appeal process. So we get many, many calls from residents who have received discharge notices. By the same token, we get those notices in our office as well, usually a couple of days after the resident receives them. And we try and reach out to every individual and make a call to the individual to see if they want to appeal the discharge. And if they do, then we will assist and file an appeal with the Ohio Department of Health, where we then end up with a opportunity to have a discharge hearing. And that's where you can present evidence, and I call it evidence, but it's a very informal setting There's a hearing officer, and then the nursing homes on one side of a table, we're on the other with the resident. And the nursing home states why they are discharging the individual. And typically, it has to do with either a monetary issue where they have not received payment, uh, one form or another of payment, or the individual has behaviors that are no longer appropriate for the setting that they're in. More often than not, in assisted living settings, we see a lot of residents who are no longer able to remain in just the assisted living. They need much more care, and they have to go to a nursing home level of care. But when those discharges occur, our office is usually the first line of assistance for those folks, and we do everything we can to help them.
Thank you. It's very nice that another viewer has called in, actually not with a question, but with a testimonial, I guess I would say, that wanted to thank our office because we helped the caller's family, and the caller wants to encourage anyone who is unsure about whether or not we can provide help to reach out and contact us. So thank you, viewer, for that compliment. We really do appreciate that, and we do our best to go the extra mile and get people connected to the help that they need if it's not us, or to do it ourselves if it is a government or a long-term care facility. So thank you again for that. I'd like to just take a few minutes, don't want to dwell on it, but I think people should be informed about how our services are funded, how they are paid for. And the government complaints that we resolve are funded by contributions from the county, the city, the school board. And our long-term care program receives funding from also kind of a patchwork quilt of funding sources that support all of the programs in Ohio. And one is through the money that comes through the Area Agency on Aging that is designated for long-term care services. Then we also have funding from the general revenues of the state of Ohio, for which we are grateful. And then, Chip, I think I'll let you finish up with some of that about the bed tax and some of the
Yep.
other sources of funding that support the work that we do.
Absolutely. There's for every nursing home resident, there is what they call a bed fee. It's a $6, I believe, bed fee that is applied to every resident room. And that is the majority, or most of that money is earmarked for long-term care ombudsman and the regional programs. Additionally, when the Department of Health goes in and investigates a complaint, they are different than the ombudsman office. They are there more like the police that come in and issue a ticket or a citation. That's their role. But usually those citations that nursing homes or assisted living facilities receive end up with some monetary penalty. Those funds go into an account that the state manages, and the majority of those funds go to ombudsman programs. And additionally, besides the bed fee and the monies from the citations, there is also a state fund that the state of Ohio pays directly to long-term care ombudsman program. And that is actually something that the state has increased their support of the program pretty significantly over the last 3 to 4 years because it's so clear, the need is so clear for advocacy efforts, because you can't just go in and issue citations and issue any type of uh, oh, uh, improper resident care citations without follow up or education or training. And we try and prevent the facilities a lot of times from having to incur such a penalty, because we get the complaint and try to fix the problem. There are occasions where we both are working the case, the Department of Health and our office, but our role is always to try and find a solution to whatever the resident's complaint is that brought them to our office. So those are from state funding to bed fees and citations, along with the Department of Aging and the Older Americans Act. That pretty much encompasses the funding that we receive as long-term care ombudsman.
Yes, and I need to add at this point as well that we are a 501c3 nonprofit organization, and we do take contributions from the public and appreciate those very much as well. We have a number of questions that have come in from viewers, so we'll get to those now, and then come back to talk about the types of cases that we have. One viewer is asking if we have a blacklist, repeat offenders list, so to speak, or pardon me, places that we advise people to stay out of or away from. So I think it's important to get an answer to that one. So Chip, I'll let you answer that for us.
All right. Well, it's a great question. We don't keep a blacklist per se, and you won't talk to an ombudsman and ever hear them say, this is the best facility or this is the worst facility. That is not how we typically operate. And as part of our program, we do not advise based on opinion, but what we do offer are facts and factual data that we have received over the years, and we can tell you if you're calling about facility A and you want to know how many complaints that facility A has had in the last 12 months, 24 months, or 36 months, whatever the time period you're looking for, we can tell you exactly how many complaints have come in that we've investigated, how many complaints have been verified, and then of those complaints, how does that compare to, say, facility B? And we can tell you factually what that data and information is. And that's really, as a program, how we address the blacklist issue. We won't say that one facility is just so horrible you can't go there, because then you're getting into some opinions and personal preferences, and we really like to stay with the data that has accumulated. And many times the high number of complaints at a facility is indicative of a facility that really may be one that folks want to stay away from. There might be other facilities that used to have a lot of complaints, but they're under new management and maybe a new owner, and they've turned things around. So we can stick with the exact number of complaints, and all of that will be shown to the individual that calls or wants to know that information. And I think that is the approach that we can be an objective sounding board for individuals who are asking those questions.
Great, thank you very much. Another question is whether or not we have enough people to do this work. Are we are, and as the director, I can answer, we are fully staffed as the funding permits. We do have one position that is open that is for a program for an ombudsman to help with veterans, many of whom are in long-term care facilities and are not receiving the number of services and benefits that would be available if they were in a veteran certified facility. So we do have that position open, but we have all the people we have money to hire, and then we'll come back and talk about the importance of our volunteers with both of our program, both of the entire office benefits tremendously from the donation of time and expertise of volunteers. But is there always a need for more? Well, yes, of course. I don't think many organizations would not answer in that way. But thank you for that question. Another question that came in is about the appropriateness of sexual activity in nursing homes among consenting adults, and whether or not that is a reason for eviction or discharge from a nursing home. So, Chip, I'll let you take that one.
Thank you. Well, that is it's a very real issue that comes up, and consenting adults typically are given a lot of leeway in facilities. You cannot restrict an individual's freedom. However, in some settings, there needs to be some, I think, practical use of your privacy tools. We know of many couples, some married, some not, but they may spend quality time together. But if they do, they are typically in a situation where their health will permit the activity, and they will let staff or individuals know not to come into their room, and they will work to keep that private. It is not grounds for discharge in most circumstances. Now, we again get into complex issues with a question like that, because you want to make sure the individuals can consent, that they have the ability to make decisions for themselves. And that's where that really becomes an important issue. You also want to look at the settings. I mean, it is not grounds for eviction per se in a nursing home, but you want to make sure that the health and well-being of the individuals can be first and foremost on everyone's mind. Many times in a skilled nursing home, it is detrimental, certain activities to the health of folks. If you're talking about assisted living, it is night and day, because assisted living is much closer to apartment living than it is any other situation. I always say nursing homes are closer to hospitals, whereas assisted living facilities are closer to apartments. And so the ability to care for oneself is much greater in the assisted living. And really, they're whatever freedoms you would expect in your apartment, you should be able to expect in assisted living as well.
Okay, another question for us from a viewer is I have to shorten this because of our time limitation on this program, but is there a magic or a certain number of complaints about a facility that will trigger the facility to be closed?
Ooh, good question. There is no magic number. However, um, the Department of Health, who oversees all and certifies all nursing homes and assisted living facilities, are keenly aware of facilities that have significant complaints, and they are repeating those complaints. And the last home closure that was similar in nature to this individual's question was in Columbus, where they had over 50 complaints in a very short window of time. I believe it was 6 weeks. And the Department of Health, at the urging of the Ombudsman, went in and did a full investigation, put them on a probationary period. They did not improve, and ultimately they were closed. And it was an involuntary closure of that facility. They did not want to close, but they also did not want to hire enough staff or staff that they're required to have. Every nursing home has to have a social worker. They need to have activities. The social worker and the activities director did not exist at that facility, and no effort was made to bring them on. It was just poorly managed, in part because there was an issue with funding from the corporation. So it can happen, but it's never us as ombudsman alone that close the facilities. We bring in other entities and agencies, and together collectively we work. We always first try to keep the facility open if possible, because nobody wants to deprive individuals of a home or employees of a paycheck. It's a very difficult decision, and there are many agencies that are involved in that.
Okay, thank you very much. And I think we do want to emphasize that the Ombudsman's Office long-term care program does not have the authority to close down a facility. Those are other monitoring entities. We recently witnessed a closure of a facility by the area fire marshal. So other entities that have different view on the facilities and the way they're being operated have that responsibility. I think there's a number of, I think there's a question here from the viewers too about the top number of complaints that we get. What are the most frequent complaints in long-term care programs in our region, and are we worse than in other regions?
Great question. I would say that without a doubt, the most common complaint in our office and across the state is the discharge complaint, where someone is being involuntarily discharged from a facility. And that's primarily because we are identified both in the statute and in the letter that goes to the resident as a entity that can assist with the appeal of the discharge. So that tends to be the highest percentage. I think we have about 17% of our complaints were discharge related in 20, I have to go back to 2021. But since COVID, uh, we have seen a growing second place contender, which is visitation. Um, there were and still are in some facilities restrictions on visitation. And when that becomes an issue, we are the individuals that our offices who people call because, again, the same signage is up in nursing homes and assisted living facilities to contact our office if there are concerns or complaints. So visitation is a big one. Uh, Third, and really not that far out of the field, is requests for assistance being ignored by the facility. That typically is call light response time. And I bring this up for one important reason. Usually, the failure to timely respond to a call light, uh, and we see those, when I say timely, we're talking 90 minutes, 2 hours, 3 hours it takes for the facility to respond to the call light. That's just grossly inadequate. They need to respond within 15 minutes or less is kind of the norm, and anything closer to 5 minutes is what we would hope to see. But when there are call light delays, it's because a lot of times there's inadequate staffing in the facility. And right now in long-term care, staffing is reaching a crisis level. It's kind of been there for throughout COVID and really before 2020. We've seen staff issues play a huge part in the work that we do. We've done so much to try and help facilities recruit and retain staff, but truly right now, where we are in long-term care, you have to look at staffing as being one of the bigger concerns, and particularly moving forward. That's going to always be an issue until we can come up with a reasonable solution.
Thank you. I don't want us to run out of time before we have an opportunity to stress again the importance of the volunteers to our program. We are always recruiting more volunteers and then training and orienting them. Our volunteers do visit the nursing homes, and they're additional eyes and ears for the program. Most volunteers will have one or two facilities that they regularly go to so that they can get to know residents. And I just did not want to have our program end without inviting any viewer who has the time and the interest to try to help out to call our office at 937-223-4613 in order to talk to us about volunteering with our office. So I believe it's probably time for me to invite Chip to comment on anything that I may not, or that the viewers have not called in to ask, that you feel like is important that we didn't get covered.
I would follow up on the being a volunteer with the Ombudsman's office is such a great opportunity. I have seen so many individuals that volunteer just have incredible experiences because every day that you serve as a volunteer, you have an opportunity to impact an individual's life, whether it is helping to make sure that they are getting a warm meal, that they are getting their medication on time, that they have water to drink, or they just have someone to talk to or a hand to hold for a short period of time. It is so vital to the model for the ombudsman program. We rely in long-term care for individuals to come in and volunteer. And it's something that we take a lot of pride in and that we really dedicate a lot of time to. We have a full-time volunteer coordinator who is wonderful. We have training that takes place. No one goes out without going through a program, a training program. At the end of it, they are certified ombudsman associates that can go into the facilities, and there is always someone that they can reach out to if they have questions. But it is really our office could not operate without volunteers, and we could not provide the service to our residents and community members without volunteers. And it really, we've had folks for a year, we've had folks that are over 20 years. It's all what someone can do, but people who are looking to volunteer, I would just urge them to call our office and look into it, because there's the return that you get for your investment is invaluable, and it is an investment of time, but you get so much back from the opportunity to serve residents in long-term care. And I think that would be where I would like to end.
Okay, thank you. And they're very definitely needed because, as Chip said earlier, there are over 19,000 nursing home residents in our area, and we can't be in all those places all the time. So that's why we need help. I would like to thank the viewers for watching the program this evening. And if you have any follow-up questions, just give us a call. I'd also like to thank those that called in and asked these wonderful questions. And other than that, I think we will close for this evening. And thank you very much. That's been the program on the Long-Term Care Ombudsman Program in Montgomery County and surrounding counties. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Diane.